And welcome back. We are going to be talking about responsible adoption of AI. This is going to be a live interview with Sima Yazdani. And Sima is a seasoned leader with over a decade of experience in data science and IT. She has been focusing on enterprise data analytics and AI enabled solutions. She specializes in developing unified data governance and data strategy using W3C open standards, and she's going to be sharing with us a little bit on her extensive experience championing and spearheading digital transformation efforts. So, with that, Seema, it's a pleasure to have you here and to talk with you. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you very much for inviting me. This is very exciting.
I'm excited to hear from you what you've been up to in your current role. One of the biggest things that we talked about prior to having this interview is your focus and passion for responsible AI.
Excellent. Definitely, I can tell you a little bit about my career and the path I took. 40 years ago, when I started computer systems engineering, I never knew I would be um, covering the type of topic I cover now, and I'd be interested. I had a lot of. I started as electrical engineering and computer systems engineering, so very focused on computers from a hardware perspective and chip design and electronics that happens. And I'm glad that I have that background because of I can follow the news, let's say from NVIDIA uh, to Oracle to large language models. It helps me see what happens when we take an action or when computer takes an action. And from an engineering perspective, that was very good because it kept feeding my curiosity. But I never knew the world of data would be even a lot more interesting than just engineering because the whole representation of the world that you can do with data. Uh, I think the closest to that is the artist. Artists that they represent the perception or understanding or visions or dreams, and we can do that with data too. And we can see a lot of these disciplines crossing path, and that means the applicability of these capabilities is also expanding. It's not just in the labs and for the engineers, but also it's just broadly available and everyone can benefit from it. So that's very exciting to see after 40 years. So most of my career, I've been at the enterprise at Cisco System over 30 years. And I had the privilege of being hired as the database administrator to start the data analytics, data warehousing practice. And at that time, when I started, Cisco was one of the top, I would say, five fast growing companies. And as a result of that fast growing, they had a lot of product orders, product assembly, and had to work with a very sophisticated supply chain around the world. And uh, and as a result, a lot of data was being produced that the legacy applications were not able to handle in terms of providing a good picture of where is the booking, where is the shipping, where is the margin, because it had already a public company, and a lot of the investors' eyes and partners' eyes were on the success of Cisco. So being able to tell the story in terms of data and rapidly on a daily basis, not just monthly basis or quarterly basis, and oftentimes at the hourly basis. So over 30 years ago, that was the expectation. And very few companies like Apple, maybe Genentech, Walmart. I remember when I would go to conferences, very few companies were looking at data in terms of multi dimensions and that rapidly near real time. And with the technologies we had at that time to get the data linked and interpreted to the point that you can and business users, decision makers could see it and it could support them. in their strategy and a measurement of how well are they progressing toward their strategy and goals, it was not common. Even the term data warehousing wasn't common. So I'm glad that I had that privilege, that I started with the engineering background from Western Michigan University College of Engineering and Applied Science, who just recently gave me an alumni award, and as well as moving toward databases, data, and information retrieval, search, which I found, again, the value of metadata and domain specific representation using data. So that got me to uh, understand that just in real world, as we talk, as we pick goals and values for our lives, or the way we live, it represents some sort of worldview or viewpoints or perspective um, or philosophy, right? All of these, we find it now with AI application. We need to see, okay, this communication is coming from AI agent. Okay, where, from which perspective it's coming from, what values are emphasized, uh, what is the context. Um, so this is very exciting for me to start from that kind of just applied science and College of Engineering to just broad base applicability of technology for the benefit of public and people and humanity is very exciting.
If I may pay you a compliment, I am deeply mesmerized in the language and poetry that you just, the way that you express yourself. It's just so rich. It's just I feel like I'm in your storyline, like I'm swimming in the timeline of achievements. I do want to say that it's a very it's such a good background to be able to understand the physical mechanics, constraints, limitations of the underlying hardware and how it interplays with the software and data structures of different programs. That's so very important, and it really, like you said, it paints a multidimensional, holistic view on how these solutions actually work and where are the trade-offs and what are the missed opportunities. You know, that there's over the years has been a watering down of theory and application, and you know, in some ways it's good, in some ways it's bad. We don't need to know binary code to be able to fashion usable and applicable pragmatic tools with the high level programming languages that we have today, and some of the cloud based platforms that enable you to do low code, no code. Um, but nonetheless, we do need to understand the implication of our solutions and actions, especially if we're sharing this world with other people and we're consuming electricity, computing power. People are investing millions, billions of dollars to build the future of our world with computer processors.
You are absolutely right. There are many dimensions to it. We don't need to understand all the dimensions to feel participate in the conversation, ask questions. We don't have to start with answers. It's it's a much more intelligent exercise to start with questions, just like children. They don't start with answers, they start with questions and start connecting these concepts together so that they start making sense for us. And if we don't hear any message that makes sense, continue to explore. That raises our curiosity and understanding. Um, in fact, when we started, I many times when I teach class or talk to my colleagues or other family members, and hear their question, I say, "Do we know how my iPhone or any of these mobile phone or mobile devices work?" We don't know, but we use them and we expect them to follow certain safety, security, responsibility. Even we ask question, how is this product made? How the people who participated in making this product are treated. So our society now asks a lot of questions about how people are treated in the process of building this technology, offering it to the market, using it. Is it causing harm? Has it caused harm? Has anybody been held accountable? Are there policies that defines how, what's the, a framework of a safe and transparent and responsible way of using this product? For years, remember, for years, we even sometimes look back that pharmaceuticals was maybe before our lifetime, maybe 150 years ago or so, or 100 years ago, was offered in the market in paper, in newspapers. They would advertise this would help for your arthritis or this oil or whatever. And our the science of pharmaceutical and commerce got to the point you cannot just go advertise any oil and say this is gonna you are gonna be held responsible, and consumers got educated and informed that expect some standards. So the standards and compliance and independent bodies coming and evaluating and continuously measuring quality and improving Six Sigma, all of these disciplines is part of our civilization, part of our progress in humanity in terms of uh, we don't want it to just be dazzling and amazing, or believe whatever marketing you say. The marketing needs to be responsible too. And has it been validated by independent bodies? And then we look at those little logos at the bottom. Is it following ISO standard? Is it following W3 standard? Is it following the American with Disability Act standards? So all of these are progress, but with the age of AI and data products, we are not yet there. So that's where we need to continue to strive to get there. In fact, a month ago, I ran into one of all my colleagues asking, after years, we saw each other after almost probably 5-10 years, and asked about his children. He said, oh yes, so-and-so is now finished college. She wanted to study law, but now she's changing her mind. Now that it's finished, she doesn't know. I said, let me talk to her. This is amazing. She can get into AI. He says, how she can get in AI? I said that we don't have enough AI policymakers out there. I cannot make AI policy. I can provide information that a policymaker, lawmaker has to codify it and formalize it and put it in a language format that is executable, and it can be, it's according to certain law, and it can be executed. And she thought, oh, I'll have her talk to you. And again, we talked, and she loved it, in fact. So, so there are, as you see, we can, these paths are crossing, and we can look at it from different dimensions, even from dimensions that like liberal arts or other fields. And as you explain in your explanation was very good. And I'm learning how to speak at a language that is accessible and useful so that it can be relevant, not just a buzzword. And I keep thinking about nightmares that, my job is going to be lost and my privacy is taken away. There are parts, these providers and engineers or product managers are responsible, and there are part that we as consumers. And but this awareness, education, and that you are doing through the podcast is a big missing link that I'm glad to be part of it.
Thank you very much. I've been very much interested in the ongoing industrial revolution in terms of technological waves, from using water to create water wheels, and then turn that into locomotive mechanical energy for breaking stone, or even now with quantum computing, where we're at now. It's amazing, doing things that we can even uh, logically track because it's just so computationally advanced. This just I feel like there's a big gap in the way that we are socializing knowledge management and the way we communicate these ideas that are very abstract, but also very natural. There's the way that we use language to abstract and share ideas and share the representation of the world from our different perspectives, but it's not clear how we can transport that over into the solution space, because I think right now we're living in a world where it's kind of enforcing the constraints of the tools that are available for us to express or resolve some of these problems. What are your thoughts on that?
Actually, a very good, I think, perspective to look at it. As you were explaining, I was thinking of Dr. Fifi Lee, one of the AI pioneers that I always love to follow and read her material. She emphasizes on vision models, visual models, not just language models. Is even more important. And a lot of advances we have today are large language models, generative AI. In fact, started off a lot of uh, image object detections research that Dr. Lee and many of her colleagues did. And one of I think one of her writings talks about that. Like in the beginning of the humanity as we know and understand it, let's say the men and women in caves, they communicate to each other and to the other generations or others through diagrams on the walls in the caves and
Hieroglyphics, yeah.
graphics, right? So there were no language, but there were knowledge transfer, there were knowledge representation, and they were specific. So that represent that intelligence behind it and the desire to communicate. And as moved along in other cultures, let's say Egyptian civilization, we have those extensive science and technologies and engineering, as you said, buildings, arts of how do they move these big blocks and how they line them up so they can resist earthquake and other phenomena. And there are still a lot of mysteries we don't understand that was applied techniques and technologies. So, and as we come now here, so the concept of um, representation, understanding, as Plato says, our understanding of the world is a reflection of the world. Still, is not exactly what it is, but we respect that as is. It's like the way you look at the world, the way I look at the world. If we respect it, it may not be exactly the same because it's a reflection on what we already know. But communicating that reflection and finding gaps, learning from each other, complementary, and continuing on that evolutionary pathway, moving forward, I think that's the key. That on that evolutionary pathway, yes, we want to scale, we want to improve productivity, we want to be efficient, we want it to be better quality, we want to be effective. Like if anybody says this medication is going to be effective, we continue to measure its efficacy and its side effects, how applicable it is, prices, is it fair, affordability, all of these elements are part of that evolutionary pathway, and we all participate in it. And there is so much room for others to participate. So when I hear AI is going to take our jobs, it's going to be harmful, I say it's going to take some redundant or mundane work, but it doesn't mean there is no more new jobs created. And there is plenty of opportunities that we can explore.
Man, I get lost. I'm telling you, you're hypnotizing me with your very rich wording. Um, I see the writings of Peter Drucker as a big influence into how I want to mechanize my operations, how I communicate ideas. One of the things he wrote about was the art of communication. Communication takes place in the end of the receiver. So it's not the person that is transmitting the message, but
Wow.
it only happens when the person affirms that the message is congruent with the perspective of the world that the person receiving it is. Like, is there a handshake in that conceptual model? If yes, then communication has occurred. Otherwise, you're wasting your breath. Um, so when you're talking about these layers, right, the complexity, the multidimensional worldview of technology, um, I assume that we have to take the view of children in all these engagements because a lot of people have access to different fragments of reality than we do in different dimensions and different density and different experiences. That's the way that the brain is building this memory bank. The experiences we expose over time create new neural pathways, and that's how we gain confidence in what we're able to say and talk about. So what I like to do is, as you said, keep things grounded, concrete, not abstract. But if we have to go into the abstract, we tie it to things that are everyday objects that can be transported as easy educational mechanisms. um, I think we're talking a little bit too much about the philosophy of it, but I think it's important that we lay this foundation. I do want to ask responsibility. You were talking about the snake oil salesman, and you were talking about people that have a layer of knowledge above the lay person. What is the responsibility in them having more light, more luminosity in a domain that other people don't have, and the responsibility that they hold in selling things for their profit?
Um, I think the awareness that we are doing now is an important one. So topics can be raised, but then start talking about it in schools, in families. Thanksgiving's coming, great topic, and at the same time. There are tools. There is a lot of need for tools and technologies to help us assess that. Uh, Many times, every time I have to download any software or forms, and it gives me a big click here. Do you agree with our terms of service? And we immediately do it. I keep reminding myself, but I haven't read it completely, and I keep reminding myself to go and read it. But I oftentimes think this is exactly where we need a tool that can read it, and it knows my values and what I say yes or no. At least it keeps an inventory of everything, liabilities I have said yes to. We don't even have those tools, right? And but we are already, or people post. One of the topics I was preparing for this session was regarding AI governance. AI, responsible AI is just the beginning of the road. It's like the kindergarten. AI governance is when we get to actually primary level. And we do organizations that produce these tools, developers that participate in creating them, and those who procure them and deliver them and consume them. We have to understand they are meant for certain purpose, but if they're used for purposes that are not listed, they can be held accountable. But even those producers, they don't necessarily explain that. Like even major companies who produce these AI products and services, they may say it's for ethical AI, responsible AI, but there is no AI policy that says what if it's violated. What happens? Who determines it's violated? Like for example, when posts we put on social media and pictures or diagrams, we put it for our constituents, for people who follow us or in our circle or our family, friends. People did not necessarily authorize these math content be used for training language models, but it has happened. Or even the patent is published material that are supposed to be just for Creative Commons consumption, non-profit. But if you want to use it for profit commercial purposes, you need to license. Is it happening in terms of language generative AI? No. So this is where I like to see more activity, and I like to definitely we need tools. We need to ask for those tools. How do I know the let's say I want to use a generative AI to generate an image for my PowerPoint. I don't want to fall into a legal liability issue. How do I know which one of these tools I should use? Um, is there an independent body like consumer group that I can go and say, does this one pass? That's it. Does it have a check mark? uh, so this is where I'm coming from. Is that we as consumers, as well as producers and resellers, we all are responsible, as well as the governments, that needs to. There has been a number of acts from executive office, from UN, EU, state of California, and these are all good. Meaning they need to be accelerated and again. And be implemented, not just a statement post on a website. We believe in terms of our vision and values and strategy. We believe on responsible AI. We also have to say what policies are in place to hold accountable or measure, keep measuring that is this being followed or not.
One of the things that I came across a book called Techniques is this story of how carpentry led to the development and fructification of architecture as a practice. Before, carpentry was all that ever existed, the fashioning of wood to create structures. Then came the commercial players where they had catalogs like Sears. They said, purchase the catalog and we'll send you the logs and everything pre-cut. All you have to do is put it together. Those catalogs grew in complexity. Conferences were had. People talked about their experiences. Oh, I made this house, but I made some modifications. I made this other house. I live in another temperature. Here's what I did. Here's my observations. And that sort of mixture of practitioners, commercial players, and eventually governing bodies developed the practice of architecture. I see we're very much in that vein as well. I think even data science was a black box to a lot of people because it's mathematically heavy and people are kind of afraid of numbers sometimes. But to couple that with AI, which is another layer of abstraction, you know, we're just playing with pieces of wood. So, so go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, that was a very good analogy, and we can still learn a lot from that. The key word you used is catalog. In fact, cataloging, like knowledge representation, uh, it, and creating this amazing solution is what I draw from what you just mentioned. And we don't have enough data catalogs in many of these S&P 500s or many of these companies. These are the very necessary steps that were missed, and in the language we use in tech word, technical debt. There are a lot in order to have traceable, explainable, uh, uh, responsible, governed AI. You need to know where data is coming from, where and do we have all the licenses? Is it still valid? Like if I at some point I don't know, I liked broccoli, but I don't like broccoli now. That should not be a permanent feature of me. So there is this transition and evolution. So the features and attributes that are associated with us through this profiling, and it has to happen because it's knowledge representation, is database management. But how do I know what is collected about me? How do I know as part of Privacy Information Act I can access it and I can request them to remove it? Yesterday, I think I got one of these emails regarding seeing if your information is leaked in data breaches or not. Actually, it was interesting. It said you can go here and request that your information be removed. And I actually went through that process, but that process was not easily available for years. The organization are collecting this information, and many of it inaccurate. That oftentimes creates problem when the banks or others want to verify, because there are, I don't know, 10 other people with the same similar information as your profile. So those inaccuracies is still there, and we need to be given opportunities to participate in correcting them or removing them or licensing them. If they are making money with your writings, your podcast, your information, don't you shouldn't be given a right um, to benefit from the commercialization of that information? So the data catalog, metadata, which is the descriptions of the data at very different levels so that the machine readable, not just, for example, when we, let's say, we take a product and let's say this vitamins. We are used to do them. We read the label. What are the supplement facts? What are the calories? What are the elements? The data products we get, do we have such a label that describes it, where it came from? Is it organic? Is it legal? Is it somebody just put like a snake oil, put a label and sell it? So we need to get to that level. So data catalog, metadata, metadata representation to the level that is useful and relevant to consumers, humans, as well as machine readable, because we cannot scale. I cannot, just like those terms of service, I cannot scale reading everything. I need to have it be collected for me. And also the governance. So how do we make sure there are laws around it, and these laws are executable? Let me give you an example, because I follow that a lot. In terms of nuclear proliferation, it's almost like AI is like that. It is. I'm very excited about it, but I'm very risk aware also. Similar to I mean, I love physics. I love learning about nuclear physics, but I do not love seeing the proliferation of capability to build atomic bomb by the rogue regimes, and risking their population's lives and the environment as well as the rest of the world. So we want to learn lesson from carpentry and masonry and architecture and the evolution and having safe buildings and earthquake resilient, high rises. We want to learn from that process, or the same with air traffic, transportation, how safe it is. One of the safest transportation is because they shared information. They have those black box. There is commissions around the world that anytime there is an accident, they are responsible to pass the knowledge. What was the issue? How can we prevent it for others? And we need to put these in place for AI, and so that not only we manage the risks and continuously measure them systematically from an enterprise perspective or a business perspective, small or large, doesn't matter, but also at the government level, make it easier, bring these tools available. Like in case of, let's say, cybersecurity, finally we have organizations like NIST or NICE that they provide cybersecurity education and a lot of material for free, and then the providers, various providers, they take those standards and information, turn them into training. But again, that commercialization reduced access to this critical information. And then we have this fear, as you said, math, I cannot too much math. And we have such a big cybersecurity skill shortage. So we need to address these fears so that our amazing intelligent public participate in this new field and shape the future, just like they shape the architecture sectors and pharmaceutical and all these other uh, industries.
You bring up a lot of good points. Let me tune it back down to the toddler level. We are looking at this technology, which we can, compare to nuclear power. It is unstable. It is hard to find truthful, transparent, explainable representation of what it is and how it works and where it works. There are so many different inputs and dynamic conditions that impact AI systems. Where do we begin with AI governance if we haven't yet quite resolved data governance?
Like as an architect, because for a while I did that, and I love the field of architecture, by the way. And we need to get back to the elements and the relationship of the elements together used. And we do that whenever we want to do digital transformation, or move from legacy to cloud, from cloud to probably AI or automate more automation, we have to get back to the basics, which is the data elements. And when we find a lot of redundancy and not enough metadata about them, and multiple ways of representing, just like we said, our profile, a multiple way of representing a product, a customer, a consumer, and all the parts involved in it. Like, some of these products out there, they have 10 level hierarchy deep in terms of parts of parts of parts. All these are not very, needs to be very well cataloged, the catalog kept up to date. And the good news is, using AI, we can automate a lot of that. For years, unfortunately, some of the technical debt or bad IT practice was just get the project done within this time frame, within this budget, and this requirement I gave you. And a lot of people got award by just doing these three, and then they moved on to other jobs. The product were not quite useful, and the data inside it and capability were unaware of data and capability in another application, that they need to be stay in sync, and therefore they got out of sync. And then when they want to make sense of it analytically, or for AI to create these indexes so it can generate and synthesize and put these packages of words or pictures for us together, these redundancies and lack of quality creates problem. When it creates problem with traceability, when you want to say, do I have, let's say, the Information Privacy Act and GDPR, do I have information that you need to either, system, if we don't have enough metadata that is kept, or data catalog. So for answering your question, AI governance, where do we start? We have to go back to all those data strategies that we mentioned in paper. How are we executing? Where is the data catalog? Who's responsible? How is kept up to date? Where is the metadata catalog that shows how do we bridge across these systems and data sets, and no matter where the interoperability, and is it just human readable or is it machine readable? Is it following a standard? That means I have to only, if I buy from company X, everything else should be bought from company X. I'm vendor locked in, or no, this is an open interoperability, and it allows, you know, transparency, and even open source can be there, so that its affordability is there. So that's where I would start. I think we are way behind in getting to that place, even in some of the very top companies, that they have the budget, they have the IT resources, they have the policies. It's not being done at the director or manager level down, because just like the whole comfort zone thing. I haven't done it before. Why should I do it now? Unless somebody make me. I have to meet the budget. I have to meet the timeline. Whereas these will have negative consequences for that organization, for the investors, for the consumers. So getting that commitment as part of the responsibility of leaders in those organizations in place, I think it's very important. I think these are the expectation from managers, leaders, because a lot of work is going to be automated. Report writing, balancing budget, all of this can be automated. But holding these, making these priorities, and making it important as part of our mission, I think it's still very human. Um, Humanistic, and drive those from a leadership perspective.
You gracefully really paint this perspective of the possibility that we can resolve this. The technology exists, the methodologies exist. There are success studies, case studies, white papers showcasing that this works. Um, but as we've also pointed out, there is the psychological, the social, the emotional, the political. Uh,
Exactly.
those are the traps that prevent us from
Yeah.
moving to a a utopian society, right?
Ex- exactly. Sometimes you hear there was an earthquake and this new building collapsed, but this older building of 500 years old doesn't collapse. So it's not lack of technology, but it was that commitment to quality, or not rushing through it. So uh, I think this, yeah, I think when I when I one of the quote from the Society of Earthquake Engineers, I think it's earthquake doesn't kill. Building that are not earthquake safe kills. And I think we can think about that when we think about AI and AI governance. Just hating AI doesn't help. It's like, what did we build using that AI? And how much reinforcement and quality check review was done, or was it just briefly audited and validated and license was permit was given? Okay, yeah, move to the next session. You can build this building. And then they come back and they say, oh, they didn't put enough metal bars, or they didn't put it in the right place. So yeah, all of these are very important.
One of the key things I've seen as a technical project manager, and I think we're getting near the end of the interview, but I just want to point this out, and maybe we can close it around some of these things. One of the key things I saw as a technical project manager was I was in charge with eliciting requirements for let's say in this example 2 organizations. One was a bit mature, the other one was a startup and immature. One of them provided an extensive documentation as to what they wanted, how they wanted it, where they wanted it, etc. And then the other organization just said, "This is what we want. Figure it out." Um, in both cases, I took an iterative approach to developing solutions to ensure that the solution suggested was in alignment with their expectations. But it didn't matter if it was a really mature environment or if it was a really immature environment. Both situations proved that whenever I created something and shared that reality with them, they suddenly became more creative and more involved in subsequent requirements or feature requests or additional bug flags that they were coming across. So, how can we transport this to data and AI governance?
Yeah, as you mentioned, there are it's purpose, people, uh, and process, right? So your purpose you followed was alignment. I want to make sure I'm in alignment. And then the process was iterative, agile. It's not like once at the beginning, once at the end, depending how iterative. And then you engage people that were relevant to that decision. And you took their feedback or input seriously. You had a good inventory. Everything has to be inventoried and tracked. Even if we intentionally say this requirement doesn't fit in the MVP, it stays in the backlog. It's not lost. And if we make a decision that move forward for it, we put an explanation for it. So not just saying we are agile or we do digital, but how do we do agile? How do we do digital? And how people are engaged? What if we raise flag on areas of vulnerability or liability? Is that recorded? Or again, giving credit, it's another thing that I think it's important from a leadership, as you say, technical product manager and technical leader is it's a very non-technical thing to do. Maybe they call it soft skill, and giving credit, acknowledging people who participate in creating this solution. Not that those who worked hard, they even put so much pressure to the level of burnout. But then when they produce the result, you set them aside, sometimes even completely not mentioning them or move them around, and then take advantage of what they have worked so hard to produce and move on. That disheartens, discourages. uh, the engine of quality. If quality and alignment was our purpose, we should not we should always remember who is creating alignment, quality, and keep it. It's the people. It's not just the money and the process and the tools and big talks. And I think that's what I want to mention, that it's a lot of art of it's the art of treating people. As you started the communication with Peter Drucker, is how it's received. As we build this product, also how we treat each other along the way. Not, and remember the issue of burnout, which is very common and it's growing. Uh, I think it helps with getting to the goal faster, better, in a sustainable, scalable way, as opposed to just, oh, I touched the ceiling, but no, I broke my leg. Okay, what's the point? Uh, we want to be able to create a stepping stone and staircases, so when we teach the ceiling, we can others can follow, and then we can go to the next level.
This will be the last question I ask of you, but it's in line with this underlying message that you say is key. How have you gone to disengage someone who is paranoid, who is fearful, who is, in no better terms, greedy or excited or ambitious? How have you disrobed that negative envelopment and helped them be more vulnerable, transparent, and be a champion of trust building within the organizations that you work in?
Uh, Definitely, I had run into those personalities and characters, and it takes a lot of effort, especially when you have a team that you know they are talented, motivated, and they give beyond their 100%. So you don't have to get to the deal. You can get out of the way, as Peter Drucker said, you mentioned, but and let them manage and build. And then we focus on these people issues. I found more and more in the last uh, 10 years, that's 5, 10 years of my career, was a lot about bridging those gaps, identifying the gaps, and sometimes that greed, that ego, out of control ego, uh, um, and fairness is so unchecked, even though we have processes in many organizations that um, people can speak out or report on a weekly basis what they liked and what they didn't like about the week. I mean, many organizations, they have, weekly check-ins like this, that how was your week? What did you like? What you didn't like? What do you like to be see change? This is very good. I always encourage my team to leverage these tools. There were many years we didn't have any of this. The voice of team members and individuals or managers could never be recorded, reach up and down, or by analysis. Now we have this. Let it be recorded, how you feel. But then at the same time, there is still this fear of that what if they get impacted. So I would say continue to be optimistic. That's my approach. Optimistic and believe in people transformation, and our job is to be a catalyst for their transformation and share what we know. There is a lot we don't know. Acknowledging that and being open to learn and listen would help us to get to that understanding, and that creates bridge. That creates that humanity. Be at their level. It's not like talk to Donna condescending, or you are in this category or in that category, I profile you. A lot of those are alienating behaviors that I don't think it's correct.
Seema, it was wonderful having a chance to speak with you. I hope we can do this again in another format. But yeah, I'm very thankful for you showing up and giving us a little taste of some of the things that you've come across as a digital transformation champion and responsible AI advocate.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to this program, and look forward to hear about feedbacks, and see you again.
Thank you,
Thank
Sima.
yeah, thank you.